Trust is extremely important for account leaders, but really it's important for anybody who's in a situation where they're relying on other people to move them along further along their own objectives, right? As it relates to account people specifically, if there's not a trusting relationship between the client and the agency, your creativity is going to forever be capped out. Trust really sets the right conditions for creativity. You could even think about it from the other direction too. So account leaders need to establish trust with their creative teams internally doing the work, because sometimes that creative process is really intensely personal. Whenever that creative process is rolling along, the teams often rely on the account leaders for their own knowledge of the business, knowledge of the client, to help really guide and shape that product that's going to go to the client. So it's really important externally as well as internally for the account leaders. The trust equation is a really, I find it to be a really practical tool that, that puts a framework around something that's traditionally chalked up as a soft skill. Right? Everybody talks about relationships as that's a soft skill in business versus maybe a quantitative skill or a hard skill. It's well researched, and it's a really practical tool that helps you isolate the variables that go into a trusting relationship. Whether it's a client relationship or a coworker relationship or any relationship for that matter, really helps you assess how you're doing and gives you insight into how you can be better. I think a valuable teaching is actually the equation itself, right? It's the four variables that go into any trusting relationships. It's credibility, it's reliability, it's intimacy, divided by your own self-interest. So I think it's the awareness of those things and the importance of those things that's really valuable. It gives you a framework, because if you have a framework, then you can teach other people that, and that becomes scalable and repeatable throughout the whole organization. When I think of all this, the one piece of advice that I carry around with me all the time is that self-interest is a relationship killer, right? Because think about it. You could be doing things that demonstrate you're credible, that you're reliable, that you could even get to be like a friend level with a client, right? And know things that maybe you shouldn't even know. But the second you introduce self-interest into those interactions, you start to diminish all that goodwill, all that good work that you've done. And really, what it comes down to is the bigger picture perspective. The relationships are the long game, right? Not to say that there's not short-term pressures, there's not short-term needs from time to time, but really good relationships, they never really die. They just change, and they might go dormant for a little while, but they come back. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's a couple years. But that for me is proof enough that good, solid, trusting relationships are the long game behind business success. Strategy is everything, but trust is everything else.